What we'll do is first on the list is the Kent District Library update. Liz, if you'd like to step on up, and if you would press that button right there till that red light comes on.
This button?
There you go.
Perfect.
Perfect. Welcome back.
Thank you. So since we went to the KDL annual report, you had a lot of amazing questions, and we thought that we would like the opportunity to stop by commission meetings maybe every other month or so, just to give you a quick update and open up the floor to any of those questions that you had for us. So I'd like to start out with a few quick highlights about the amazing things going on at the library. So last month we had the highest number of patrons in the library for the entire year by over 300 people. So we are starting to see people coming back to the library in droves after a really tough year, so we are excited. We also were able to open our play area for the first time, and boy, are the kids happy to see all those toys out again. The train table is one of the favorites, and kids remembered it and were excited to see it again. We've also been busy with outreaches in the community. We went to the National Night Out. We had a great time. KDL was there, dressed up our elephant, and we had a prize wheel, and it was a lot of fun. We also have been involved with Camp Kennewa and the Kennewa Hills Middle School, so we're keeping active in the community, and we're out there doing the best that we can to get people into the library. And lastly, I'd just like to talk about our partnership with Feeding America for library lunches to go. I am proud to say that we handed out close to 1,500 lunches to kids under 18 this summer. And that was just an amazing opportunity to really feel like the library was doing something for the community and getting food in kids' bellies. So super glad this is the second year we were able to do that, and even more kids this year than last year. So with that, I just wanted to open it up, see if you had any questions for me.
Should say commissioners. There we go.
Were you able to distribute all of those lunches, or?
Yeah.
So you did you run out, or?
So Feeding America kept us very well supplied.
Okay.
So we had a few left over that we were able to give out to kids. But yeah, 1,500 is the number that actually went into kids' hands.
Okay.
So.
Very good.
Yeah.
How did you incorporate that with reading and books and such? Did you?
So, yep, we had our intern there, and very often our intern would share what was going on in the library, invite kids to stop into the library and get books. And we found that people were coming to get the lunches, but then they were also taking that opportunity to go to the library and then to go to the park and to make a whole day of it, where they might not have come if they didn't have this thing that was drawing them to us. So it was wonderful in that way as well.
I just wanted to say I've seen you at the concerts as well. So nice to have the presence, the community presence at the community concerts. One thing I'm just curious about, do you have any updates on COVID protocols going into the fall at all with your programming or with the kiddos? Anything that's official that parents should be aware of?
So as of right now, we are going to go ahead with fall programming. For the littlest ones, we're going to do at Walker. We've decided to do a good chunk of them outdoors just for that added safety. And plus, it's a lot of fun. Like we did an outdoor series this summer. There were over 200 people that attended, and it's just an opportunity to get outside and play and dance. And the kids, the librarians, and the parents love it. So it's sort of a win. It's safer, and everybody has fun.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for me?
None on my end. Well done. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you for having me here
Appreciate
today.
it. All right, next on the list is let's jump to right now, if we can, we'll cover the consent agenda items. Get that out of the way. Daryl, I'm going to turn over to you if I can on the particularly B and C. I think
Sure.
other ones will have some questions.
Sure, if there's no questions on the bills, I know Commissioner Glanville had a couple. And
Yep, that's
replied to
right.
everybody, so.
Got it, thanks.
There's no other questions on that. The second item on the consent agenda is to consider the appointment of a part-time magistrate for the court. John Jackson, who's been our magistrate, part-time magistrate for over 18 years, is going to be retiring this fall on September 30th. And part of the process is that the judge makes a recommendation for his replacement, and we need a confirmation. We're looking for a confirmation by the city commission. So he is recommending that Dan Zamitis be appointed as a part-time magistrate. And you probably recognize that name. He was the magistrate before he was elected to circuit court judge, and then he's since retired from that position, and he is willing to serve in this capacity. So the judge is seeking your approval to make that appointment of Dan Zamitis as the magistrate for the court.
So we'll take an official motion on that at the 7 o'clock.
Yeah, that can all be accomplished under the consent agenda motion. So if there's any questions on that? Okay, the second item is really a housekeeping item. This relates to our defined benefit pension plan with MERS, which is our Municipal Employees Retirement System. As you know, it's a closed plan that was closed several years ago in the early 2000s and late 90s, but we still have several employees that are members of MERS, mainly in the police department, and then some general employees that are left. So we have right now we have 4 groups, different groups in MERS, and what we're doing is proposing to consolidate that down to 3 active groups, because we had a separate group that was for the former police chief and former deputy, and those benefits mirror what the Command Officers Association has now, so those can be shrunk down. So this is really just a housekeeping chore, and we're renaming that group. So you can see in here, we're renaming it COAM, which is Command Officer Association of Michigan and Police Administration. So they all receive the same benefits, so they'll all be under the same group as we move forward. So this will just require a signature from Shannon once your approval is granted. I'm happy to answer any questions of that if you have any.
Commissioners, anything?
So there's no really major changes, really, it's just consolidating and merging.
Yep, all consolidating, all the benefits are all the same, no
Okay.
changes at all at any of those benefits.
There's a lot of detail in there.
Yes, there is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Commissioners, anything else? All right. So at this point, we've covered the agenda items. I'm going to pull a quick audible here before we jump to managers in commissioner comments. I see Commander Wilmers from the Legion out in the post. I know you're going to speak, so why don't we jump, because I don't want to get into the other things at this point. You have met with some of the commissioners with a pitch for a idea for a senior center, which we're going to take up at the end of the meeting tonight when we get to comments to have some discussion up here on some direction that we want to go. Do you want to wait until then, or would you like to go now and share your thoughts on that and give us time to think, or do you want to wait till the end?
Whatever works best for
Okay.
you guys.
Okay, why don't we do this? We'll get the housekeeping stuff out of the order then. Is Ray from Irwin Seating out there? I'm looking for, there you're in the front row, sorry. I didn't expect you had a guest with you. Look by yourself. So in front of us, you have seen in the commissioners in your packet a industrial facilities exemption certificate for Irwin Seating that has details about an expansion that they want to do for 60,000 feet. This is not the first time. We have seen Ray up in front of us over the years, and when I think of how long Irwin Seating's been with us, and it's 53 years, and that was one of the first businesses that was up on the Fruit Ridge area there way back when that started to get settled. So nice to see them continue to grow, and they've been good stewards of the city as well, and allowing some of the extra land that they have to the north to be developed for additional needs that we have from an industrial area up there. So this is basically a request from them for the tax exemption certificate, and basically it's a 60,000 square foot expansion, approximately 15 new jobs coming in, and you have all the details in the packet there. And Although we have to have the formal open of the public hearing, are there any questions or concerns for Mr. Vanderkoy while he is out here in the audience? Are there any concerns on this? Can I get a straw poll a little bit for an approval on the request that they have then? Because if we have a thumbs up, I'm going to go ahead and release him for the evening. Otherwise, I will keep him here. Thumbs up, coming this way. Comes up. Ray, you're welcome to stay, or you can have the evening to yourself. Which one do you want? Thank you for coming. Great seeing you again. Thank you. Yep. All right, we're good to go. Let's do this. We have about 18 to 19 minutes here. I'm going to start to the right and work our way around here for comments, so we'll get our housekeeping items out of the way. So, Madam Clerk.
I'll stay here, thanks.
Okay. Commissioner Gilbert.
I'm good.
All right. Commissioner Glanville.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to attend the Maytag conference this last week, which is, let me see if I can get the acronym correct, the Midwestern Association of Trails and Greenways. So it's a regional conference that includes, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, probably Wisconsin. Yes, Wisconsin was there. And a lot of really fantastic information about what our neighboring states and communities are doing at the policy level, state level, local level. There seems to be a lot of excitement around something called active living, and I know I've spoken with our local AARP rep about that pre-COVID. So, and Commissioner Gruters, we went over to the AARP meeting in Lansing with some intention of doing potentially doing the walkability studies and things like that add to the active living amenities that we might have in our city. So hopefully we can pick that back up if we can get out of this little web of COVID. At any rate, a lot of really interesting like I said, policy and programming that's going on within the 5-state region, and I'm excited to see what we're going to be able to apply to our Parks and Rec Committee as we get that off the ground. And then another thing in the same realm that I just wanted to bring to our attention is right in our own area here in Kent County, as I understand it, I think there are 2 cities that have Parks millage up on their election this fall, Rockford and East Grand Rapids. And I feel like there might be another one in the wings. And I know there are, I believe, Granville. Does anybody know? Frank, is that right? Granville has a Parks millage, do you know?
I don't.
Okay. I feel like there's a couple of others. I know there's a couple other cities right in our area. So, that green space and that active lifestyle and we've done a lot of industrial development in Walker, which is, great for jobs and our income base and all those things. But, I just want to make sure we're not losing sight of some of these other pieces that are going to keep people in our community and draw people to our community, as we grow. So like I said, looking forward to what we're going to be doing with the Parks and Rec Committee, and just got my finger on some of the stuff that's going around us locally and within the 5 states. So really, really fantastic conference topics, and I'd be happy to talk to, if anybody wants to hear a little bit more detail, I'd be happy to share. And I think that's it. I feel like there was something else, but it just popped out of my head, so. Yeah, I think that's it. So I'll pass it on to Commissioner Gruters.
Nothing for me.
Okay.
Nothing for me.
I wanted to make a suggestion in regards to the office supply question that Commissioner Glanville had. Can we have a dollar amount where if it's over a certain dollar amount, that we have a little bit more detail there so we don't have to ponder or bother anybody? I just think I looked at that too, so I'm thankful for you to have responded. But, if it's maybe over $1,000, we get a little bit more dialect on the log.
Yeah, we have a spot in the first part of those bills where it gives the more description, and then that back part that Carol referenced was the total of all those. So we have only a limited amount in the description line. So if you look above, it talks a little bit about what those expenses were, and then the back part is just the total of each account.
Okay, I just
So-
saw the word emergency and I thought, well, okay, but what does that mean?
I mean, we're limited on what we can do there, but I'm
I
happy
get
to
it,
respond.
I get the
or-
character,
so.
you're limited to
Yeah.
a set amount of characters, but
Yeah.
just anything over a certain dollar amount, if we can just get a little bit more
Yep.
detail or description, that'd be great. And then I also wanted to thank both Scott Connors and Gary Postma for their feedback on a question from Falcon Point and that driveway dip. I'm not sure that I completely happy with the answers from the property manager, more in Brujink, but I appreciate what the city staff did to accommodate my inquiry.
And there is a third-party property manager there, too.
Yeah, there is.
Yep, but working in conjunction with Warren Bridget for
Absolutely.
that project, so.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. Cool.
That's it.
Commissioner Burke?
Well, if we're thanking city staff, I guess I have to start with thanking you for the hundreds of questions I've asked over the last several weeks, and will continue to ask more. I've done a number of tours, thanks to Shannon for setting it up. I've been through the police department, the fire department at some length. 2 hours today with Public Works and Gary, and then another hour with the city engineer today. Most of the morning tomorrow is with the city clerk and the city hall staff, so I really appreciate all the time and energy that's gone into trying to get me up to speed as quickly as possible, so thank you very much for all that. Speaking of Parks and Rec, I have read the resolution, draft resolution you put out, and I'll send you those comments. I'm compiling them, and I'll get them back to you. I did watch the special session and committee meeting that I missed 2 weeks ago, all 2.5 hours of it. I couldn't always hear the answers. We were talking about the microphone in the center here. I could hear the questions loud and clear, and I sometimes struggled to hear the answers. So I talked to the city manager about trying to make sure we get the mics working right so we can hear. Because I found it very valuable to be able to just kind of go through it and listen to it all and really hear all the issues and folks, citizens who have complaints. So I've already done a number of drive-arounds through that area on that topic for the special session, and I've got my little list of things that I'm going to be curious about going forward, but I'm pretty comfortable for tonight. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, if I can cut in quickly.
Go ahead.
Just on the audio stuff, and I want to bring this up here before I forget, because I brought it up once at the Rapid board, but I wanted to mention it. We at the Rapid have these movable microphones that they set at our tables. They can be moved around the room, things like that. They're not wired to anything. I think that might be something we want to look at. Maybe it's a finance committee thing, but just having the ability to, I mean, we do meetings down here. We've talked about doing meetings remotely, things like that. I think that would probably be something to help facilitate some of those things. And I know that, I think it's Andy in IT over at the Rapid that works all that stuff out, but just something that we can probably follow up on to have some discussion about that. But I just wanted to bring that up before I forget about it. Thank you.
No, building on that, we had, what was it, about 2 years ago? We had we did the conversion over to the current system, much overdue. And for those that used to hear the scratching and all that up in the static, I mean, it's come a long, long ways. But we at one point had looked, our clerk had brought in the wireless mics at that point. And it deemed that it was needed at that point, but I think our world has evolved a little bit there. And if we think about, larger meetings up in the community room, the Stay Howard room at Fire Station 2, having to have something up there, because right now we really don't have anything that's adequate enough other than a mic. But there's obviously going to be a cost investment with that to get the system there. Probably would want something that's in line with this so they can be used at multiple places. But that may be something we can look into here. Yep.
With our new COVID,
Sure.
everything going into COVID now, with doing more roundtable discussions versus our long conference room and stuff like that. And then, like Commissioner Burke said, that one meeting, when you were all sitting around there, it doesn't pick up. The microphone can't pick up. So, yeah, it'd be a good
points.
investment.
Yep. Okay. Good feedback. Mr. Walsh?
Nothing for me tonight.
All right. Daryl?
Just one other item I have for you. I'll pass these, have Frank take one and pass these down. Just would like to recognize our assessing department. They were recently awarded a certificate of achievement from the state of Michigan, from the Department of Treasury, because every 3 years they go through what's called an AMAR audit, which is an audit of minimum assessing requirements review. And Kelly does a phenomenal job on this, and typically there's a couple, 2 or 3 things that need to be adjusted every year. Well, this year, 2021, she received a perfect score on the AMAR audit, so she was recognized last week by the Department of Treasury, and I received the certificate today in the mail, so timing was good, so I thought I'd share that with you and give congratulations to Kelly and her staff. As you know, she's very detailed in the way she does things and keeping us on par, so little feather in our cap there from the state, so. That's all I have for right now.
All right. All I have then is, I'm going to hold off because I'm watching the time for us on the senior conversation and Fire Station 2 and the utilization up there with senior neighbors. So why don't we, it is just about 6:52. We'll have 8 minutes. Take a quick bio break, email break, what have you, whatever you need to do. We'll get started here at 7 o'clock then. Oh, my goodness. I was just thinking of... What was I thinking? I want to special mentions. Oh, sorry, that's what it was. All right. We all good? All right. I'm going to go ahead and call our 7 o'clock meeting to order of the regular City Commission. At this point, I'd like to invite Commissioner Burke to deliver his first invocation and then lead us in Pledge of Allegiance immediately following.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for a wonderful summer here in West Michigan. Please watch over us as we go back to school and move into the fall. Please watch out for our American citizens, our allies, and our friends as we withdraw from Afghanistan. Help guide this commission to do our best for the city of Walker and for the fabric of our American society. Please look out for our police, our fire, and all those who watch over us while we sleep. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I'd like to invite the audience to please stand and join us for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. And if I could please ask our clerk to call the roll.
Mayor Carey,
Present.
Commissioner Gilbert,
Present.
Commissioner Burke,
Present.
Commissioner DeShane,
Present?
Commissioner Glenville,
Present.
Commissioner Groders,
Present?
and Commissioner Heisinger.
Present.
Chase.
All right, we have the band all together up here. Next on the list is the approval of the minutes from the August 9th, 2021 City Commission meeting. Do you have any discussion on that first? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion for approval and support.
Make a motion.
I'll support.
Commissioner Chase, Commissioner DeShane, and support. Any other discussion on the minutes? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Thank you. Next on the list is I will open up for our audience here. This is for the public hearing on the industrial facilities exemption certificate for Irwin Seating Company that we just discussed at our 6:30 Committee of the Whole meeting. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter and this matter alone is welcome to come up to the podium. Going once, going twice. Hearing is closed on this. Next on the list is public comment on agenda items. I would gather I recognize some faces in the audience that a lot of this has to do, attendees have to do with the rezoning request for the former Lincoln Golf Course and bowling alley. So this would fall under that purview. So this actually at this point is time for opportunity for you to come up. I would ask, because there's quite a few of you, number one, please encourage you, if you feel compelled to speak, please do come up. If you'd press the button, looks like that red light's on the mic, that would be great. And as you come forward, just please state your name and address for the record. And I think we've got enough here that we'll be respectful of the time, and we'll take the first person that would like to come up and speak. And this would be on agenda items. Anybody in the audience? Anybody? Come on up. There's always the first, so thank you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Sarah King, and I am here about the Lincoln Lawns development.
And you do live in Walker?
I do live in Walker. Yeah, I live right on Maple Row.
Okay.
Which is just north of the. I actually sent an email a couple weeks ago to many of you up here, so I actually just came to read it to you and put it in the record. So here we go. We are Walker residents, and I'm contacting you about the Lincoln Lawns development and the impact it will have on Maple Row Avenue. Our house is located at 1059 Maple Row Avenue, which is between Leonard and 10th Street. This stretch of Maple Row is the only road with no sidewalks in our neighborhood. Maple Row also shoulders the in and out traffic for approximately 120 homes in our neighborhood. It's over a half mile from Leonard in current to back of the neighborhood. Our road supports a robust amount of pedestrians, but also a long stretch of the road, which continually has commercial and residential vehicles speed toward the back of the neighborhood. As you discuss adding more homes into our neighborhood, we would want to express our already existing concerns that will only grow with the expansion. We understand connectivity is important, part of your planning decision, but we would also like to advocate for complete streets alongside connectivity. We propose, we being me and my husband, and we wrote this together, we would propose these features would help with safety. Adding sidewalks to our street. I've spoken with city engineers, and I'm aware this is a difficult budget and logistical issue, but only the commissioners can move the ball forward on filling these sidewalk gaps. I'm hoping you can make sidewalks a top priority and build a financial and logistical plan in tandem with the expansion of the neighborhood. Number 2, possibly adding a 4-way stop at Maple Row and 10th Street. This would split a half mile and force the cars to slow down and halfway down the stretch. Number 3, better street lighting. It's very poorly lit street for being a main artery in the neighborhood. Number 4 is possibly speed bumps. It's not my personal choice for a fix, but it's a safety feature we would welcome. I have a 2-year-old girl and a baby girl, and I spend a lot of time at home and around our neighborhood. While out for walks, it's unnerving when vehicles don't slow or give a wide berth to our stroller or a toddler on a bicycle. We feel frustrated and isolated when our neighbors around the corner are hesitant to come over with their children because they don't want to walk on Maple Row at dusk. Looking into the future, we'll have 2 children that need to walk to their bus stops on our road during peak traffic hours and often when it's still dark out in the morning, even in the snow and ice of winter. If the city decides to move forward to connect Maple Row to the new development, then we implore you to truly connect us as neighbors with all the facets of a complete street and find a way to make a funded plan to add sidewalks with the expansion of the neighborhood. That's my email. I wrote one last final comment for you guys today. In the 1950s, Maple Row was a dead-end road surrounded by fields with some houses on it. One of those houses is the one I own. They didn't build the original streets to handle the traffic load, and that it sees today. As every development was approved and added over the decades, it funneled more traffic onto our street. The Lincoln Lawns development is the last land available to develop surrounding us. This development will increase the traffic more than any other project has, and it's the last time you'll be looking at this area in great detail. If the commissioners don't make the sidewalks a priority this time around, I'm not sure when we will be brought to the front of the conversation again. I'm not naive to the extent of the investment it will require to go back and add sidewalks into an existing neighborhood, but I'm asking the city and commissioners to please consider to do the hard work anyways. It would make our neighborhood complete and above all, safer. Thank you.
Thank you. And what I'll do for the good order of the audience here is we'll actually allow everybody that wants to speak to come up and speak, and then we can have some discussion with the commission up here, open dialogue on, you bring up some good points and points that we've discussed in the ad hoc committee. So that being said, anybody else like to come up and speak?
press?
It should be on. There you go. Red light's on there. No, you're good now. Yep, you're good.
Just backing up what the lady right there said about the sidewalks. I've been living on Maple Road. By the way, my name is Mike Malinowski. I live on 1147 Maple Road. Lived there for 46 years. And like that lady there, seeing the neighborhood develop. The neighborhood is developed and new developments put in around us, but nothing has changed with the capability of Maple Road to add or handle more traffic. I watch, there's people I'm looking at right now walking their dogs down the street, young women walking baby strollers down the street. I asked a policeman one day, what's it gonna take to put a four-way stop on 10th? What's it gonna take to put speed bumps in? Does some woman and her baby gotta get killed to make that happen? His answer is that probably wouldn't do it. That street right now can't handle the traffic it has between commercial, residential, everything that goes up and down that street. And to add half as many or more homes is ridiculous. None of you people up there would want that done in your neighborhood. It's not safe, and putting sidewalks in is a Band-Aid. It's still not going to cure the problem with the traffic moving up and down that road. And anyway, I've gone a little bit beyond you. I think sidewalks should have been done years ago and never happened. Anyway, that's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this? Come on up.
Thank you. I guess it's already on?
Yes.
Okay. Just a few, my name is Bob Herrig. I live on 991 Sunset Hills. So I'm a short distance away from Maple Row, but it's all one neighborhood. Maple Row and Sunset Hills control the traffic in and out, and we get a good share of it on, even coming from the east or the west, we get a good share of it coming out or coming in on Sunset Hills. But my points are that it's a whole neighborhood. It's not just Maple Row and Klusterer. And the thing about it is, to Mr. Malinowski's comments, the amount of children that are being on the street, in their bicycles, whatever, and mothers walking and fathers walking their children back and forth in a residential neighborhood, this kind of thing could open it up to where, and then you take on a daily basis with the amount of equipment in the neighborhood for doing lawn care and what have you, what's a two-lane street is really gets down to in several places a one-lane street. Lake Michigan Drive, and from my standpoint, I was born and raised in the southwest part of town, but Lake Michigan Drive has been a busy, busy street ever since I was a kid. In the 50s, it was our main route to get to Grand Haven to go to the beach. What's that got to do with anything? But I'm tying that in with Lincoln Lawns back in, I don't know when, came back to Grand Rapids 5 years ago. But Lincoln Lawns used to be a big, booming enterprise. It had a bowling alley, it had a golf course, it had a banquet facility, it had a bar and dining. The traffic in and out of there at that time was, I would think, equivalent to whatever's coming with the amount of homes that are proposed and the units that are there. The other thing is, on the corner of, and this is what I don't know, and I don't know how many people really have a feeling about keeping a neighborhood rather than a thoroughfare, but on the corner of Sunset Hills and 10th Street, a gentleman and his wife put in a swimming pool. Well, they thought they had applied by the rules and regulations, but evidently there was a paragraph or two missed. But anyway, they came before the board if it was the planning commission or this commission, whatever, they came before the board and they could not get a variance. And there was nobody in the neighborhood that had any problem with the swimming pool where it was at. But they were denied. So anyway, this situation compared to where everybody in the neighborhood didn't have a problem with what they had on their property, now we're getting into where we're affecting a whole neighborhood with the amount of in and out, ingress, egress traffic. So I guess that's basically my point, but a neighborhood is a neighborhood, and for what we've witnessed, and we love it there, with seeing young kids on the streets, seeing young mothers walking their kids back and forth and what have you, and some of the streets, part of Sunset has sidewalk, but part doesn't. And Maple Row again is in the same ballpark. And therefore, going back to when Lincoln Lawns was a big booming enterprise that it was, I don't understand why the traffic can't be routed right out that way. And the other point is, you get these, if these two come in and they get it, people are going to learn the ropes and there's going to be shortcuts taken. People from not even living in the neighborhoods, rather than go to Kinney or Wilson or whatever, they'll be pulling the shortcuts, just using that as a regular traffic lane. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi. My name is Jan Rodema, and I live on the neighborhood. Maple Row has been one of the best streets that I know of. I've got great neighbors, great community. I've lived there for 40 years now, and it has been a real joy. Now, if you open it up, like the gentleman said, it's going to create traffic hazards that are unbelievable. I mean, right now, you can't even get traffic to slow down on Maple Row coming back from the new development behind us. Because I have known and I have seen people traveling through there at 40, 50 miles an hour, and sometimes more. I have a neighbor who's been trying for years to get at least traffic stops on 10th and Maple Row, to get that, at least help slow it down. But it doesn't seem to work. Now, I've inquired from him and I've asked about speed bumps. I mean, I don't like them, but I sure don't like the traffic driving down my road at 70 miles an hour. I've seen motorcycles go through there like there's no tomorrow. The neighborhood is changing. It is becoming a new, young neighborhood. And you have all the, and Sunset Hills right now has more of it than we do. But on our street, we are changing. We are getting younger people in. And with no sidewalks on the streets, and to make that a thoroughfare through, I mean, you're asking for trouble. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tom Howe. I live at 919 Sunset Hills, and I just wanted to state my opposition to through streets in our neighborhood. I had the wonderful opportunity to move into Walker a year ago and was happy to purchase my house because I live on a quiet cul-de-sac. And I'd like to keep it that way and not have those streets go through. I understand the need for development and the desire to have that particular piece of property and the revenue that would bring, and I'm certainly not opposed to that development, but I would ask that you as the city commissioners would represent us as the citizens to that developer, asking them to amend their plans and not connect that development into our existing neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, how are all of you? So I'm Zach Cornell. Just purchased my house about a year and a half ago on 811 Custer. So new I probably didn't even say the name of the road right. But so what I came here to kind of talk about today is the fact that you know, I don't think there's many people in the room that are super excited about the development, right? I mean, I think we all love the open space there and the golf course that existed there before. But now it's to the point where our neighborhoods are being disrupted. You know, the roads are being connected to this development. And I think for me personally, I live right at the end of the dead end of Custer. So the golf course is my backyard. So for me, not only am I going to have to deal with the development, but now our street is being connected to this development. And if you look at the road itself, it is a straight shot, half mile from the end of the road to my house. So opening that up only extends how far people can go and how much speed people can pick up moving through there, because it is a straight shot. On top of that, you know, there aren't any sidewalks, just like Maple Row is. There's no sidewalks. There's no street lighting at all. I think there's one light that comes over the middle about halfway down, and that's it. So the neighborhood is completely dark. There are a lot of children, a lot of new people coming into the neighborhood who bought their houses, I'm sure, with the same thought that you know, it's a very quiet neighborhood, not a lot of things going on, not a lot of traffic right now. But this new development is obviously going to change that. And I think for myself, just moving in, I'm getting to the point in my life where you know, I'm gonna start having kids, and I'm looking, you know, when we bought our house, we were looking for that house that could potentially set us up for that, right? Maybe not our forever home, but definitely something that could get us started and something that I could see us, you know, starting a family in. But with this development coming in and all of this traffic that's going to be coming through, and more than likely the rate of speed that people are going to be going down Custer now, you know, I'm to the point where I would be okay with leaving and making that decision to move out of Walker and move elsewhere, looking again for that quiet end of the road kind of feel. So. Like I said, I don't know that any of the comments today are going to change the development itself, right? But from the connections to the neighborhood and the impacts it's going to have on all of the people in here, just connecting to their neighborhoods, I hope maybe something today, you know, something comes out of today and what we've kind of talked about. Yeah, I think that's it. But yeah, I just kind of want to leave with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Natasha Moore. I live at 977 Maple Row, so I'm almost right at the corner of 10th Street. I certainly do not want to stop a four-way stop there. It's going to create nothing but traffic backups. I mean, where are all these cars supposed to go when they come to the stop when the school buses are there? You know, we're putting all these apartments here and going to bring all these people into our neighborhood that don't give two craps about our neighborhood because they're just going to rent for a year and leave. As far as the police come down my road 2-3 times a day, but they come down the road when nobody's there. I mean, I would rather see a cop sit at 10th Street and start pulling people over and give them tickets. I'm one of those people out there walking with my dogs. I won't even walk 2 dogs at a time because I'm afraid I'm going to get hit. So I make somebody else in my household go to walk the other dogs so that we can keep them right by us. And obviously, yeah, I don't want that much more traffic. There's just, you get to the end of Leonard, you can't see either way. So again, you're going to create nothing but traffic backups. And when school starts, it's just even more dangerous for our kids. My kids have gone through the school district, which is a fantastic school district, and they're done. But now I have my grandkids coming over. I have to put her in a wagon because of the way some of these people drive up and down the road. And again, if you're going to have the police patrol it, have them patrol it when the cars are on it. They can't come through at 1 o'clock in the afternoon when everybody's sitting having lunch. You know, and I've even seen them sit on the side of the road for like 2 hours. What are you doing? I've seen cars go by you and you didn't even follow them. I know they're going faster than 25 miles per hour because I can hear their tires. I shouldn't be able to hear that from my office, which is on the back side of my house. So, again, I would implore that they not only do traffic stuff, but come and look and see how many people walk through our neighborhood with no sidewalks there. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Walt Fedorowicz. I live at 961 Maple Roll. I have a couple of issues here that haven't been brought up. And in the past, in the 80s, this was an issue. And it was an issue of a handicap home on our street. Currently, right now, we have Pine Rest Christian Home for the mentally handicapped. And I see these people, they walk up and down Maple Roll, and I talk to them. They're a very nice group, and they handle this home very nice, I have to say. And they're good people, and they need to be in our community and be able to live with us. And before, in the 80s, when I believe it was in the 80s, they tried to put in a home there, and it didn't work out so good. Well, what I'm getting at is back in the 80s, that was funded through the state of Michigan. And there was a lot of restrictions as to what you could do on a street like that. I don't know what they all involve in that. Maybe something you could look into, and that'd be something you can be concerned about. Now, there's another issue also. I think that's a big issue with these people ride their bike up and down the street. They walk in groups of 6 or 8. And another issue is this. When you're coming down Maple Roll, and you're heading north on Maple Roll, and you hit Leonard Street. Well, guess what? When you make a left-hand turn there and you look right to see if anybody's coming, there's a knoll there just to the east. You cannot see that traffic at 45 miles an hour. I don't care if it's 35, even 45. You lose vision of them. No eye contact. And it's dangerous. And someday something's going to happen there. That knoll has to be addressed just east of Maple Roll. I don't know if any of you've driven there or seen that. It's not a good situation. Now you can talk about the safety of sidewalks. Well, that is good. That's a good thing to have sidewalks, but I grew up in Grand Rapids, the city, and I'll tell you, sidewalks aren't the answer. Because when I was a kid, guess what? I was in the street on my bike, or I was running across the street. You have lots of children that come from the east of us and the west of us. They don't stay in those areas. They're on Maple Roll. And sidewalks is not the complete answer. And to have this to be a thoroughfare through there, I can't really explain how bad that is. Or I'm not exaggerating when I say they're flying through there at 50, 60 miles an hour. Especially if you came over in my area there and you sat in my house between 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning, hang on, because they're going to come. And they're going to be going 50 at an average. And what else happens too is you'll have the police come, and I've noticed this, they'll come and they'll sit right across from my home. And they'll sit there for maybe 10, 15 minutes and they're gone. And that's all, because I've talked with them. And they're gone. But I do think the issue on that home, that might be something the commission might look into, because I don't know if that's federal money involved in there or state money. But I know there's restrictions. And that's something to look into, and I'd like to see those people to be in our community and get around. And the other thing is that here again, making that a thoroughfare like that with the garbage trucks that come through there and the school buses and that, and it's 2-lane road and it's narrow, it's overtaxed. And it will be overtaxed immensely when you have the people coming off of Lake Michigan through there. I know that for a fact. And the other thing is Grand Rapids is growing big and fast, and we are too. And just look at the traffic that we now are subject to going down Leonard Street. And if you have to put a light over there, and I'll say that that'll happen. There'll have to be a traffic light over there on Maple Row and Leonard. Because that's just something's gonna happen, because that's gonna be a disaster waiting to happen. Because like that knoll, and you're trying to turn out of there, and that's a lot of expense that would be for Walker, that knoll, I'll tell you right now. That's not gonna be cheap, and it's a safety hazard. But I'd like you to look into that home I was talking about. It's Pine Rest Christian Home, and what are the restrictions on that? For putting in a development and running it down through a street like that, because I know there were restrictions. That was under the state, and I think there's federal money in this one, and I don't know if state, but I would like you to look into that before you make your decision. And I know you're all concerned, commissioners, and you'll do the right thing, and you won't let this go through. Now, these developers, they come in this area, fine. They get their money, they're gone, and we have to live with it. Well, I'm at an age where I'm not going to be around a whole lot longer, and I feel sorry for the younger people, and I don't want to put up with it with myself either. I just don't think it's the right thing, and I think that you commissioners will do the right thing, and I thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Hi, I'm Evan Carr. I live 1125 Custer. I guess my biggest concern is that our road is too narrow for any additional traffic. And I would like to know if you're planning on making that a true 2-lane road with lines down the middle. And if you were, I guess I'd like to know how much that's going to be cutting into everybody's lot down there. Because like I said, right now, it's just not big enough. It'd be a big safety concern of just all that traffic going down this small road. And I'm kind of more towards the front of it, so it doesn't really affect me that much. It more affects the people like this gentleman that he has to deal with all this traffic going down a half-mile stretch. And I just would like to know if you were planning, or if anybody was planning on making that a longer road and what it would do to our lots. Because I don't know about everybody else on that road, but my lot is not the biggest. And I guess I just would like to know what would go on there. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Hi, I'm Carla Keys, and I live at 976 Maple Row. This is something that wasn't brought up. I don't understand why they have to come through our streets. All the other apartment complexes that have built on Lake Michigan Drive have used Lake Michigan Drive. It's got 5 lanes for people to go through. From what I've read about how the development's going to go, Lincoln Lanes, I think it's called, there'll be an outlet for people there. We really don't want them in our neighborhood. That's a lot of transient people that don't live in Walker, and I just don't think they're going to respect our neighborhood like people that live here do when we drive through our neighborhood and are watching out for kids and things. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Deb Oliver. I live at 901 Cooster. I moved in 98. Love the neighborhood. I just can't see you putting it straight through. It's not wide enough, and if you do widen it, some of those homes, the only yard they have is their front yard because their home sits so far back. So, and you're going to take half their yard. And their kids are out there playing. They got their little pools. We got dog walkers galore, young families up and down with their kids all the time. And it'd just be a disaster to run this through for everybody. But I don't know what the decisions are. It would have to be widened. And I don't know if you're, sign papers, and I imagine the developers would pay for all that. Walker wouldn't have to. And then you'd increase our property taxes because of it. And I don't think any of us that live on Cooster really care to have a sidewalk shovel. But with the amount of people that walk their dogs, their kids, they're always up and down that street. And it would just be a mess to connect it. Nobody wants it. When I was looking to move over this way, my realtor said, well, I got a house on Collindale. No. There's the house on Kitty. No. So, I don't want to have a straight through either. And my neighbors don't either. Please make sure it doesn't happen. There's got to be another way to route this traffic through. Like she said, route it back out to Lake Michigan and let them go around. They'll find their way. But don't put them through our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. So one or two more or more. All right, I'll give it one last call. Anything on the agenda items? Yep, come on up.
Hi, my name is Margaret. I live on 1012 Sunset Hills. Me and my wife are the ones with the pool that you probably heard about from back there. Even living on Sunset, daily occurrences of people zooming down our street. And they're not necessarily people that understand or that live here, that understand the community that our neighborhood has. We have two girls, 2 and 7. They love to play in the yard. They ride their bikes. They're going to get old enough. And same difference, as the ones that live on Maple Row. Just that traffic can be just super nasty. And that's with them in clear view of the cul-de-sac down the street. It almost doesn't even matter to them. They zoom to where they need to go, and then they're to the driveway, and they carry on with their business. And the other issue I'm kind of thinking is with schooling. My kids go to Zinsser, or my oldest goes to Zinsser. If that development has access to Leonard, that's a perfect bypass from Lake Michigan to Kinney for them to come straight down to Leonard, take a left, and they're right there at the school. I don't know what that's going to do to traffic, to the buses, obviously to the safety of the kids. I think those are my two big concerns. And I know that there's a proposed traffic light, I believe, off Lake Michigan Drive and Sunset. If you count from Collindale to Wilson, I think there's 5 traffic lights already. You're just adding another traffic light. And I know, as one of the neighbors back there said, when Lincoln Lanes and Lincoln Lawns used to be, at their peak, you'd have hundreds, maybe even a couple thousand people there. And there really wasn't a huge issue getting people shuffled onto Lake Michigan Drive and out to where they need to go. And again, if that traffic light is going to be needed to facilitate traffic out, of that complex, I can imagine people coming to their senses at some point and saying, well, we can bypass this altogether by just simply coming through the neighborhood. And with the issues we already see, I think that's just going to amplify, the danger factor for the parents and, wanting their kids to have their neighborhood to play safely in. So, and I think that's all I have to say. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Renee Butts. I live at 1017 Cooster. Hi there. I haven't met these people before. I just want to reiterate what everybody else has said. We're small little communities. We bought our house on Cooster because it's a dead-end street. We don't want traffic going through if we can avoid it. I'm glad I don't live on Maple Row. I'm sorry. It sounds like it's awful there for them. I don't even go on Maple Row. So I just want to add to everybody else's concern and implore you to really think this through. For the people who do live here, the ones coming into the community and those of us that have been here a little bit longer than them, we don't want all this extra traffic if we can avoid it. We just want to keep things safe. And right now they are, somewhat. So thank you for listening to all of us, though.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Michael Cochran. I live at 869 Maple Row. I just want to kind of reiterate what has been said here already, and add a couple more things. I think that per the previous woman's comment, that if I'm not mistaken, the developer is only going to pay to connect the roads to the development. Anything else is going to have to be paid for by the Walker taxpayers, and that's going to be a very substantial expense. Maple Row, adding those sidewalks, I mean, it sounds like kind of an easy thing, but there's probably a dozen trees, there's utility poles, there's power boxes that are there that are all gonna have to be moved, in order to put that in. And Custer, I've only been down there the other day, I drove down there, it's very, very narrow. I believe for that type of street, like a neighborhood connector, it would have to be widened out to 30 feet plus a 6-foot buffer on each side plus sidewalks. That's gonna take a chunk out of a lot of people's yards. And I think that this most recent plan, I think, is the third plan that has been proposed for this development. It has vastly increased the number of apartments that were proposed there, which I think is a mistake. The second plan did not connect either Maple Row or Custer, which I think is the right call. I know we need connectivity, and there is some concern with public services and police and fire getting in and out, and those are valid concerns, but there's got to be another way to handle that than connecting. Lake Michigan Drive is so busy. All it's going to take is an accident one morning and everybody's starting to look at, ooh, now I think I can get through this way. And they're going to start making that a regular trip anytime there's a delay on Lake Michigan Drive, and it's just going to up that traffic. Same thing if something happens on Leonard in the morning. So, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this or anything else on the agenda? I'll go one more time. Anybody else? All right. Thank you, everyone. Great points. And I think before we roll into the next couple things on the agenda, a couple things I'd offer up for you. One, what we're considering as a city commission tonight is very simply a rezoning of the property. There is, if that rezoning is approved, there is, and the development continues back to planning commission, there's a number of steps and probably pretty long journey yet with where do we connect roads, where do we not connect roads, what does this look like, who's paying for what. There's a lot of moving parts with it, and I think a lot of complexities as well. So what we're looking and considering tonight is not any of that, it's the rezoning of that. And the reality is, really quite simply, it's a piece of agricultural land right now zoned, and it's going to get rezoned at some point in time. It may be tonight, maybe in the future, but at some point in time, that life as a golf course has ceased to exist. And what's going to go there, I think that's for our planning commission to work on those plans from there. I think the second thing, just we don't have the timers up here limiting how long people talk. We try, and as we would want to be treated, a lot of us have been down sitting in those chairs. I know that for when I have been and come up to speak at that microphone before, and we're a little bit different community than that. So as we go through this evening, there'll be some additional time for comments towards the end here. You're welcome to share on that as well, and just appreciate the civility. Sometimes these things, they can be, they tax us a little bit, and we don't want it in our streets and our backyard. So that all being said, just tonight, we're approving being asked to consider approving the rezoning. We'll get to that in a few minutes, that item. But next on the list is the consent agenda. We have 3 items. The first is the expenditures in the amount of $981,332.88. The second is the appointment of the part-time magistrate for the court, promoting the Honorable Dan Zamitis to fill the retirement. And then also, as we covered these in the 6:30 committee of the whole meeting, is the kind of the housekeeping on the defined benefit plan with all the changes in the administration of the police department. So I'll open up any questions from the commissioners on said items. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion for approval and support.
So moved.
Motion of Commissioner Groders.
I'll support.
Commissioner DeShane, thank you. Any other discussion on the consent agenda? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right. Consent agenda is passed. Thank you. Next up on the list is Resolution 21-611. It's the resolution approving the application of an industrial facilities exemption certificate for Irwin Seating Company. We covered this a bit at the 6:30 meeting. A lot of good things happening with Irwin. They've come to us as a good steward and partner within the city here to ask for a little assistance as they continue to make their investments. I, for one, personally think it's a very fair ask with all that they've done. Any other questions on this? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion for approval and support.
Motion to approve Resolution 21611.
Support.
Commissioner Burke, Commissioner Glanville, thank you. Any other discussion on said items? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Resolution 21-611 is passed. Next on the list is the second reading of the rezoning for Lincoln Golf Course and Lincoln Bowling Center, as we've been discussing here. What I'm going to do here before we jump into dialogue is give the commission, myself, opportunities to share comments from a discussion standpoint for all of us before we take that up. So that being said, I'm going to open it up to the commission, and anybody that wants to jump in. Commissioner Gilbert, your light's on first.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So as the representative for the City Commission on the Planning Commission, I will say that the comments from the public are well taken. We're very sensitive to the impact that this will have on the neighborhoods to the north, no matter what shape the development takes. And I think that we're having very serious discussions about if these are the connections that were to happen, what we would need to do to make sure that those streets are safe, what mitigation there would be for any connections that are made to prevent that straight through speeding down the road type of traffic movement. But the street network, those parts of this discussion are going to be hashed out at the preliminary area site plan with the Planning Commission. I imagine all of you will probably make it out to those meetings as well. I think I've seen a lot of these faces from meetings past, and look forward to continuing to discuss that with all of you and make sure that we're hearing your thoughts. Today, the rezoning, I think, in terms of the structural layout of how we're putting these zones in place and what type of development will go in which physical location, not the road network, but just having the breakdown of single-family homes in there, multifamily homes, and that commercial frontage on Lake Michigan Drive. I think that the rezoning itself is solid. I think we have come to consensus that having those single-family homes on the exterior of this lot is the right thing, that there's a role for multifamily homes in this development, and that we want that commercial frontage on Lake Michigan Drive as we had put in the master plan. So those are the things we're acting on tonight. The other parts we'll be talking about a lot more at the Planning Commission level, and I'm sure we'll see many of you there to move those discussions forward. But as far as the rezoning itself, I think we're in a really good place, and I think that we feel I speak for myself, but I certainly feel comfortable with the rezoning structure that we're talking about tonight.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could,
Commissioner
just, I'm the new guy, so I'm just trying to get up to speed on all this, but one of the first emails I got was from Mrs. King, and I actually went through the neighborhood probably about 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, and I did have someone blow by me on Maple Row, so I know this, the speeding issue. I'm wondering if we, regardless of where this goes into the future, if we need to just look at traffic calming measures for that area anyway, no matter what we do, but that's kind of a sidebar thought for the moment. I think a lot of great impassioned comments. Obviously, this is, so close to all your hearts. Doing the right things, I think, harder than it might appear. If we do start down this path, we are going to have probably more places to live in the community. We're going to have more stress on our streets. The traffic's going somewhere. So you may think if you live on Kinney, well, you bought it on Kinney, you deserve it. But, we still have to think about the whole city, not just necessarily one individual pocket. We have to take a bit bigger view of that. So there's still a lot of work to do, I think, on the details of the preliminary site and then the final site as to what we're doing to control traffic and other things. I asked for some data on if you go about a quarter mile east of this area, you hit Nixon and Maynard, and those neighborhoods were clearly connected over the years, and I've driven through there a few times as well, and I personally haven't seen a major amount of people chasing through that neighborhood to get up to Leonard, but maybe I'm at the wrong time of day, I don't know. But a lot more to be done, a lot more for me to learn, but certainly understand and appreciate your heartfelt concerns. Thank you.
I'm going to add on to Commissioner Burke's comments too. I agree that regardless, we need to make sure that everything is kept safe. That's our number one goal as commissioners, and I know we all have family. We all either have grandkids or have neighborhood kids. I know I'm a dog walker. I have 2 beautiful dogs, and I love to run, and I love connectivity throughout our city. I think sidewalks are going to be very valuable, especially too on underdeveloped roads such as Maple Row. I think regardless of what the Planning Commission comes up with for road connectivity, we need to really consider some of these roads that do not have sidewalks and have young families. We need to really consider them as more of a priority within our city, and better street lighting. I'm real sensitive to that. I'm really sensitive to that, especially if they don't have sidewalks. We definitely need to make sure that we can do something to have them have better lighting so that those areas or those people who are walking at dusk, living in Michigan, there's times you leave your home in the morning and it's dark. There's times you get home in the evening and it's dark. There's not a lot of light. So, man, when you don't have a sidewalk on your street, I definitely think we need to make sure that that's something that we keep safety. We need to err on the side of caution on some of this. So I do appreciate all of your comments, and we do not take this lightly. And I just, I understand because I live off from Kinney, so trust me, I live where all the construction is going on right now. So I feel the pain that you guys have mentioned of what can be and what can happen. So, thank you.
Good. Thank you. Go ahead.
I am in favor of the rezoning as we've discussed, as just the initial first step, and obviously there's much more work that has to be done. In considering the concerns for sidewalks, I did ask staff to give me some information on how many neighborhoods actually have sidewalks, because where I live, it's the same thing. There aren't sidewalks, and there are kids, and there's narrow roads, and I don't even walk on like the road that I used to walk on because it's too narrow and there's nowhere to jump other than in the ditch, and I'm not really fond of ditches. So, but anyways, the staff informed me, they compiled a really nice amount of information. Of our actual residential neighborhoods, only 47%, there's 47% that have no coverage. So I appreciate Commissioner Burke's comment on you know, we do have to look at the whole city. And like Commissioner DeShane said, we need to make sidewalks a priority for more neighborhoods, obviously, because many, well, 47% have no sidewalks at all. So I do think that's important to keep in mind as the whole city develops and grows. So that's it.
Thank you.
I agree with what Commissioner Gilbert, Groders, Burke, and DeShane said about all the sidewalks and stuff and making connectivity for it, but I am in favor of the rezoning for tonight.
Thank you.
Shall I wrap things up? I want to return to Ms. King's statement. I thought that she really put a lot of thought into what she, and has done her homework as well. And I'm curious, this came up in the conference I talked about earlier too, where we are with a complete streets policy in Walker, and even at the state level. Maybe Commissioner Gilbert, you can help track some of that down eventually, but I'd like to know a little bit more about what's involved in that and how that ties into our master plan and future development, and going back and picking up some of these areas that, 50 years ago they didn't do sidewalks, and so now we're all on the hook for that, and we got to figure out how we prioritize that. So the, questions of demographics and things like that, and looking at, like I said, how do we prioritize neighborhoods for sidewalks and development and that sort of thing, and where does that money come from? And I said millage once tonight, I'm going to say it again. We have one of the lowest property millage rates in the area, if not, I believe it's the lowest. And it hasn't been raised in well over a decade. So, I know people don't like to hear these things, but, if we're going to be making some major investments to improve our city, then, that's something we need to maybe rally behind at some point. And to Commissioner Burke's point, another aside, like there are other things we can do. We can look at things like community garbage collection, so that we don't have 4 or 5 different, garbage companies running through the city, but we have one on a regular schedule and things like that. So there are some things that are maybe outside of where we're thinking that can help mitigate. I know it doesn't solve everybody's problems, but we can start looking at some of the things that communities around us have done to help calm traffic on their streets. And with the rest of the comments we've had tonight, I'm going to be really watching closely how these site plans move through, with no final decision on how the connection, where we're going with connection. Still a lot of work to be done there. So, but just really, I think we need to, again, take that higher view of what we can do citywide to improve traffic flow and the safety of our neighborhoods. So thank you all for coming out tonight.
Good. Commissioners, anything else? No, bring us home. All right, a couple of thoughts. I know some of you had approached the microphone and asked some questions of us. I wrote a few of these down, and hopefully we'll be able to answer some of them. Interesting enough, in the sidewalks, it's I have family that lives at the end of Maple Row, near where as the stubbies, as I call them, the little pencil sticks sticking out of the ground, and can walk out of my sister-in-law's driveway and walk a few feet down to those. And so I truly do understand. And I live over here in back of the Ace Hardware, and I go by Mr. Melanowski's house as I go down, and many others, and recognize some of the St. Anthony's folks as I'm coming down there. Like I see them at church, and I go by in the front yard as I'm riding my bike down there. And I too, at one point in time, when family moved in down there, and we used to go down there for Sunday dinner, Sunday events, and almost always had bikes. I don't remember strollers going that far, but as we went down there, yes, your head is a bit on a swivel coming down the road. But the challenge here too is when you look at the width of that road, you would obviously, there's not enough room in that road to put sidewalks, so it's going to have to come into the yards. And when you get into that topic of sidewalks, then the discussions that come into there is what we should do, and what our engineering and public works department ask us to do from a safety perspective for the residents. And then there's like the minimum acceptance of what we are able to do in shortening that up a little bit. But then you get into the safety issue as well. So, it's a rhetorical question, but if you don't have those sidewalks there now, and I want to acknowledge the fact because I've walked in your shoes, I've ridden the bike down the road and been there with my little ones as they were growing up, going up and down there. My point here is, if we were to put sidewalks in, say that there's not a connection made, I'm just theoretically stating here, if a connection's not made, and would neighbors still be willing to give up some of their yard for the sidewalks? Because there's no way that road can take sidewalks and the road right now. It's not wide enough. There are requirements we have to have for acceptable roads, and it would not meet it with those sidewalks there. So more of a rhetorical question is, it's going to get into people's yards, and do you want to give up yards? And I would ask the question myself if it was my front yard. I think the other thing when we talk about traffic calming devices that Commissioner Burke had alluded to, first up is there speed bumps. As a city, we don't want speed bumps in the city. They play havoc with the snow plows. There's a number of reasons that we haven't gone into that. There's other traffic calming devices, some a little bit more contemporary, with a narrowing of the streets and so forth that can help there. I do hear the concerns about the four-way stop at 10th and Nixon, about not wanting to have it, but yet then also too, there could be an argument made that maybe it makes sense to possibly have, or a narrowing of the road, there's something to possibly address. So there's some options there, no matter what Planning Commission would do at that point in time. I, like Commissioner DeShane, I am highly sensitive to the lighting piece. As the city managers and our public works have found out, I tend to drive around the city at night, and I make a long list of the lights that are out, because as a city, we're paying for them whether they're out or not. And as backlogged as consumers is right now, we can't take the foot off our gas pedal and compromise public safety by not having those roads lit because they're too busy with things. So we put in our fair share of those, but we can always add more as well. The adult care homes, somebody had mentioned about that. I do remember that same agency that had one over on Maple Road back in the late 80s, early 90s. I can't remember when it left. Actually has one over here on Remembrance right now. It's the newer home with the white kind of picket fencing out in front, right across from Road and House Body Shop. And then there's another one with the same firm over on Wilson. So when we talk about the speed through Maple Row and the people walking through those neighborhoods, there's one right here on a very busy road, and there's one over on Wilson, which is an even busier road. So, and that one over there doesn't have the connection with the sidewalks either. So just from an information standpoint, they do exist in our community. I know there's a handful of others that are around as well. And we are highly sensitive to making sure that those are, that they have safe passage through things. For speed limits, speeding on Maple Row has been a problem. Speeding on just about any street in our city is a problem, and as some of the teenagers that I know down my street even come up and down Deerfield, they fly by my house, and if my dog's out in the front yard and in the yard, doesn't leave the yard, they come flying by. There's a little thing of tennis balls I've thrown now and then at some of the kids to get the attention. It happens in my neighborhood, and I get it. There's ways for us to help with the enforcement piece of it, but we don't set the speed limits. We're really bound by, we talked about Leonard Street. When we change a speed limit sign, it's because there's been a study done. We've applied the Michigan State Police traffic methodology and what we can and can't do in those speed limits. We can't just arbitrarily change a speed limit sign and create a speed trap, at least not in Michigan anyway. So those signs that go up, they have a rounding number. It's the 85th percentile, I think, is the number. So there's a formula there based on the traffic count and the average speeds through there that's set at. So a lot of complexities, moving parts here. but bringing this all home, hopefully that addressed some of the questions and answers here. And we'll have public comment here in just a minute as we get done with the rezoning request. I'm going to come back to something Commissioner Gilbert shared. What we're being asked to do tonight is approve a rezoning. And would I love to see that place there as a golf course, or see it as maybe a, something that has some open space there. There's an argument to be had there, and it's appealing in a number of aspects. There's also an argument to be had for the housing stock that we really do need in this city to help keep, as Commissioner Glanville had shared, our property tax rates are in fact of the cities, it is the lowest in Kent County. Even when you add the income tax in, our tax rate per capita is still the lowest in the county. And I'm going to restate that. With the income tax and our low property taxes, we have the lowest per capita tax rate in the county. And we managed to make do, with what we have here. But there's a point in time too when we start adding sidewalks in. There's a capital improvement plan we have for just about every major sidewalk improvement we want to do in and around our city, and it's a long laundry list. We're going to be here for a while, for decades, trying to chip away at that thing. So we will continue to do what we can there and add that, but I think as we get to the rezoning piece here, please do understand this is coming back to the Planning Commission at this point, because you've heard all the commissioners share their stance on it. Mine is also to support the rezoning because it's the right thing to do for that piece of property right now. The Planning Commission is going to look at a preliminary site plan, and there's still a lot to do on that. And if it gets approved by that, then it goes to a final area site plan from there, and there's a lot to do with that yet. I think the feedback you shared tonight is incredibly important. I think, too, this is something the Planning Commission does need to hear as well as they get to that point. So that being said, I'm going to, at this point, unless Commissioners anything else, I think I've talked enough there, so I'm trying to answer the questions, but I'll entertain a motion for approval and support on the second reading. We've already done one. This is the second and final reading of the rezoning ordinance 21-517 for the to zone rezone from agricultural on the Lincoln former Lincoln Golf Course and Lincoln Bowling Center property.
Make motion.
I have a motion from Commissioner Gilbert. Do you have support?
I'll support.
Support from Commissioner Groders. Is there any other discussion on the rezoning and the rezoning only? All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Gilbert, support from Commissioner Groders for that second reading to approve the rezoning away from agricultural. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, our rezoning has passed. Next on the list is the other public comment. Doesn't have to be on the agenda items. It could be things that we just discussed. I'm going to open it up again. You have the time that you need. You have the captive audience here. If anybody would like to speak on either this topic or anything else that's on your mind, feel free to come forward. Anybody? Yep.
Please forgive me if I am duplicating anything that was said earlier. I got in late, had to go to my kids' open houses at the school for orientation for tomorrow. So if I'm repeating anything that was already said, I apologize. My name is Jared Van Dopp. I live on Maple Row, 881 Maple Row, so directly affected by the new Waterford project. So I just want to hit on a few topics really quick. So as I came in, there was a lot of discussion about traffic and traffic speeds. I just want to make sure we're focusing on the right thing. It's not so much traffic speeds, because it's residential, we all know the speed limit's 25. It's a matter of the quantity. By adding this development in, we are adding a massive amount of traffic. So even if the traffic's only going 25, you're looking at doubling, tripling the amount of cars that are going to be traveling up and down Maple Row on any given day. All right? So we'll make sure when we're talking about traffic, we're focusing on the right thing. The discussion about other streets not having sidewalks and having homes, assisted living homes, I get it, I understand it, but just because other neighborhoods might not have an ideal situation doesn't mean we need to take our situation, which is good right now, and make it worse. So please don't use that as a justification for putting in this development, okay? I want to make sure we're not using that as an excuse to go ahead and make decisions that we might not otherwise make. Third point, okay, I don't know how many other people have beat up this issue. I know I've mentioned this in prior meetings, and this goes to density, right? So we've already got, I'm going to start on Lake Michigan Drive at Wilson. All right, we've already got what the Westtown at Wilson apartment and home complex that was just put up within the last few years. Moving further east, there was the small townhome apartments that were built off of Cummings, south of Lake Michigan Drive, right behind the auto parts store there. Moving further east, you've got the huge Apple Ridge apartment complex on the south side of the road. On the north side of the road, you've got the Hampton Lakes apartments. Moving further east, you've got the Bayberry Point apartments, which were just expanded on. And I realized that right there at that's Maynard, is the eastern border of Walker. But just on the other side of that, you've got the Lincoln Square and Marsh Ridge senior living communities. And I know for a fact that the city of Grand Rapids is currently going through the process to approve another apartment complex parked in between Lincoln Square and Marsh Ridge. So my question, the reason I bring all that up is, what is our limiting principle? Okay? Those apartment complexes I listed are already built. They're not going away. And we're about to, we just approved the rezoning for this property we're talking about, and likely going to be building more apartments there. So all those apartments, they're there. We can't decrease it. So that's the low end. The high end is we bulldoze everything in Stanleydale and make it, 2 square mile long stretch of Lake Michigan Drive is nothing but apartments. That's the low end and the high end. What's our limiting principle in between those two? How densely are we going to continue to pack this area? And that's an open question. I know none of you probably were expecting that question tonight, but I think that's a good question that everybody sitting on this council should be discussing, and we need to determine what is our limiting principle. How densely are we going to continue to pack this one small area? And I guess then, just in closing, listen to the people. I know this is not a planning meeting for how the development is going to go. This was more discussing the zoning, which was just approved. So the zoning's been approved. That's going to happen. But all the comments that I've heard on all the previous meetings, either in person or online for last year when we were doing all the COVID stuff, there is a lot of concern about how this development is going to go in there. And I'm looking around, like I said, I walked in late, but just checking around the room, there's a lot of people in this room that I know from my neighborhood. We got to listen to the people. And if that means this project doesn't get started for 5 years until we can come to a consensus where everybody at least has a reasonable amount of agreeableness to it, then that's the way it needs to go. This does not need to be rushed through. Okay? I guess that ends my questions. Does anybody have any questions for me before I go sit down again?
I think
okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Actually, appreciate I think, Mr. Van Dopp, on the timeline, I'm trying to think that it was early 2020 when we were first approached, roughly was the time frame. So this was a multi-year project already. And I don't think, there's not necessarily a proverbial light at the end of the tunnel of, okay, this is going to be done.
Right, but I understand how developers work too, and the developers are going to want to develop to get their money, or to build and make a profit. And I have friends that are contractors, so I joke with them about seeing if they can get contracts to work in that development. But please, let's not rush this. Let's make sure we take our time and get this right and have a consensus within the community, because I think that's terribly important for a small city of ours like Walker. And just to piggyback off something you said, sir, I do appreciate how well the city manages the funds, and I do appreciate the fact that our tax rates are kept low. So thank you all for that.
Thank you. Commissioner Gilbert, can I impose upon you a little bit on
Please.
putting you on the spot, a little bit on the density piece and the per acre, just with you sitting on, for those that might have come in a little bit late on the planning commission. The density, I believe that this was less, maybe considerably less than some of the other complexes mentioned.
You're saying for the density of the multifamily?
Correct.
Yeah. This is not built in, I guess it's not designed to be built in the same way that we have some of those other apartment complexes that were mentioned. They're going to be single story proposed. I think the density was somewhere in the range of 6 units per acre on the multifamily section, Frank. Yeah, so it's considerably lower than what would be like our typical high density. You think the Apple Ridge style of apartment building, but is that what you were looking for? Okay.
Yeah. I don't think anything has changed there. I know there's moving parts, yet again, the complexities. I think that's more on probably for me, is on the street connection. And I think for the group too, there was a point in time, I think it was back in May, this body up here actually, it was before Commissioner Burke joined us, this body actually preliminary denied the rezoning, and we tabled that request. And the reason at that point, and I think I can speak for the no votes up here, was at that time it was close, but it didn't align with the master plans. One of the things was a direct connection to Maple Row straight ahead. And it might have had a little bend or two. I think the reality is that probably is going to become a drag strip at some point. So now that any other roads, there's been a number of iterations since, there's a lot of twists and turns, and I would make the argument that the traffic is going to be a lot more considerable coming from the north end of the golf course through the new development, whatever that ends up looking like, than it is going back the other way. The shopping, the stores, the gas stations, everything is back this way. Quite frankly, the access would be more under proposed ideas that they've put forth. You're going to have stoplights out there, stoplights out there, different access points out there. It's going to be a lot different out there than it is coming through the neighborhoods. Personal preference, but I don't know that necessarily, if I'm needing to head to the store, to the gas station, I'm not going to cut through a bunch of neighborhoods to do it. I'm going to go out the point of the easiest way, and that's going to be through that going out to Lake Michigan Drive. I would offer up to, I think when the neighbors find how easy that it is to go to get out into Standale, to hit Meyer, to hit any of the restaurants out there, I think the traffic's going to flow a lot more this way than it is this way. A lot more. If I'm wrong, then I'm sure there's going to be quite a few people to point that out. I just don't see that happening. And that's probably based on just traffic engineering principles and fundamentals. So, but it's one thing I'm just going to encourage this group. All of us make ourselves extremely accessible. Many of us, the only number that we give out is our cell phone numbers. And again, that doesn't happen in many municipalities. We represent you. We're trying to do the best we can. And as sometimes we up here disagree with one another, but we are trying to do the right thing for the city. Sometimes the same thing happens. As you're sitting in those chairs, you might say, no, they're not hearing me. I believe we've tried to do a very good job since this all started last year. And we made it very difficult for the developer through 2020 when they weren't getting the message of you're not listening to us, you're not listening to the residents. And they've come a long ways with it, and I will give them credit for that. So Planning Commission meeting coming up, we will make sure that we are very judicious in promoting that, the date when that is coming up. I know there's some neighborhood pages that are there, and we'll make sure that gets out there as well, so that you're all aware of when that is, and make sure, and I know Commissioner Gilbert will deliver this messaging tonight to that group, but your presence there is going to make a big, big difference in getting those roads right. We need to hear that. So I think that's for the commissioners. Anything else? Okay. One last time for the public audience. Move along here. Okay. And we'll come to our seniors thing in a second there. Okay.
Hi, Sarah King
Come on
again.
up.
Hello. You asked the question specifically towards Maple Row, kind of like if we would be willing to give up our yards for the sidewalks. And I just want to reiterate, my answer is yes. I obviously can only speak for myself, but like as a mom of young children, we have friends right around the corner, and I'm willing to do a lot. I'm willing to knock on doors and get signatures from the community if it would help your sidewalk cause. And I'm very interested in whatever it would mean, because I want my kids to safely go visit their friends without me walking them there all the time, or walking to a bus stop, you know, as they get older. So my answer to that question that you kind of posed to us was yes, I would give up part of my yard. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. What I might ask our city managers to help out with is, could we get a look between 10th and Leonard Street and get, I don't remember if we have an estimate or not on that stretch.
I think we have an old estimate. What was it, 2019 that we got that presentation?
Okay.
We'll have the engineers double check that.
So what we'll do, and then here's the other conundrum here. It's not the first time it's happened either. If you put it on this side of the road, then this set of neighbors is saying, well, they put it on my side, but not on this side. So now you have to put it in both sides. So it does change the dynamic. It doesn't solve every problem. I think we can all acknowledge that. It's a fair, logical argument to have, but we definitely can look at that and make that maybe more of a priority given everything that's going on. And I would also offer up the traffic calming devices. I know many of us go through there walking, biking, jogging, whatever that may be, going to see family down there. I would acknowledge that older stretch of Maple Row is not the most ideal. And whether, you know, at this point, really, whether with the growth that's already taken place back there, whether it's connected to Waterford or not, it's probably something that we can move up the list a little bit. So if that's a fair case to take from here. So, but anyway, that being said, well, that's, are we good on Lincoln with the audience? Discussion? All right, we're going to slide forward then. Next up is what I'd like to, I'm going to come back to something we, and folks, you're welcome to stay or not. We're going to get into a little senior center conversation. You're either welcome to stay or leave, whichever, I'll leave your preference. So thank you. And again, thank you all for coming out. Thank you.
Sorry, I guess I could have said this prior, but Frank, on the limiting factor thing that was brought, or what is it, limiting factor is what he said. Typically, we talk about trying to keep the rate of available rentals competitive with the amount of single-family homes we have, correct? So you try to keep kind of an even ratio between those two uses?
You know, the magic ratio is 60-40. 60% owner occupied, 40% renter occupied.
There you go.
And
I knew that number was out there, I just couldn't.
We're there.
Yep.
You know, and the census data that's going to come out will probably reaffirm that what you've done over the past 10 years is you're right in that 60-40 ballpark.
Yep.
So that's another one of the metrics that, you know, we watch pretty carefully, just to make sure that we're keeping that nothing is an optimum balance, but if you're looking for some general numbers that,
Yeah.
the planning profession looks at, 60/40 is the way we try and
No,
balance it.
I remember hearing those planning guidelines over time, and I couldn't, but thank you.
Well, let's jump into, so I'm going to tee this up. Sergeant Frank, I think we're good. You're welcome to say, but thank you. So one of the things back when COVID hit and we knew we had an issue on our hands with the indoors component. We closed the Ice and Fitness Center, and then also all city buildings at that point from rentals and community things taking place in there. And there's been some ebb and flow in there, and what I want to do is tee this up a little bit, and Melissa and Jenna are here to talk a little bit about a pitch they've made to some of us, and I had promised them if they'd show up, we'd find time. Didn't think it'd be at 8:30 at night, but we're getting there. So here's our conundrum. So the fire station 2, which is Standale, was built 06 timeline. 09, thank you. I always get my dates wrong. So as that was built, at that time, there were multiple senior groups meeting in the city of Walker. One was at Station 3, and I remember very vividly going up there numerous times, making historical presentations, talking to them about school stuff and maybe bond campaign things that were coming up. And it was a very active group. And there was also a group meeting at Station 2 in the old fire station, which is now the empty parking lot right next to Shots that the DDA has. So what happened when that fire station was built, those groups, definitely the Station 3 one had already pretty much broken apart by then. Some of the longtime founders had actually, unfortunately, had passed away. I think Jack and Helen Waldo were fabulous ambassadors of the city, and they led that effort up there for a long, long time. So that all being said, what happened was the city at that point in time, as the new fire station was being built, the Adrian J. Stayhauer room, upstairs community room, I should add, at that point in time, because the seniors group did not have a place to meet, because the old fire station was put on the market to be sold, I think right about that time. They did not have a place to meet, and this was a ad hoc seniors group, just very loosely knit, and they were, I think there was a commissioner at that point in time that took up the initiative of helping them find space. They were not ready to do permanent space, so that group was allowed to meet up in that seniors room on a temporary basis. That was 2009, correct, Daryl? Yeah. Get my dates right. So, and I'm going to lean on Daryl for some comments here in a second, but what happened is since 2009 to 2021, almost to 2022, we have operated, that room has really been limited for us as a city, especially up until COVID hit, where if we needed a larger space, public safety, it's come up a number of times where other space had to be rented at taxpayer expense, and we couldn't use our own room that we owned. And at the same time, a little frustrating was we had the senior millage being collected by the county, not picking on the county, but that was the millage that's been approved, and that revenue was coming in, but we were letting a group use that facility up there without an agreement, I don't know if they have liability insurance or who's covering that up there, and without any type of revenue, but we had upgraded everything up there to industrial, to all the things that they needed, and they use it for their programming up there. As right before COVID hit, we were already feeling some challenges with that arrangement and how it had been for so long, and it was meant to be a temporary thing back in 2009. So fast forward to now, had some discussions with the CEO from Senior Neighbors, and we actually toured some of the city buildings. We had a delegation from the city. We had a group from Senior Neighbors that went. And, ideally, Station 3 up on 3 Mile, the upstairs where the other senior group used to meet for a long time, would be the ideal situation. There would need to be, because they have to have industrial kitchens, I believe there's some health code things, because they prepare and serve meals up there. There'd be some things that would need to be upgraded, and as we were having those discussions, the burden was placed back on the city of if they would go up there, that the city would need to upgrade and update all this stuff. And I really struggle with us as taxpayers up here, personally, but then also representing our community of us paying for that, yet there's a millage being collected that we're not capturing any offsetting to the expenses of this. So we offered that up. That was not an option for them, because there's a continued stance of not wanting to enter into a rental agreement to help offset the expenses that the city still incurs for cleaning. They've not been back in, that group's not been back in since COVID started. But about a third of the residents looking at the sign-ins, looking at other documentation that's been provided. At a peak time, it's no more than half. Generally speaking, it's about a third of the people show up are actually residents of our city. So we are serving a lot of other communities, and that's okay. It's for the greater good of the community. But what I wanted to bring forth tonight, and Jen and Melissa have a bit of a pitch to make, some involvement they had with the Georgetown Senior Center, is what do we want to do from a policy standpoint on a go-forward basis with this. I personally struggle a lot right now with a millage being collected and being dispersed to a group that really should be paying that having those some stake in those expenses and is not doing that. But then I balance that out with the importance of senior activity within our community, which we have at the Ice and Fitness Center right now. And think long-term too, to the community center, our plan is to have dedicated space to seniors in there. May not necessarily be affiliated with Senior Neighbors. It may be a different program. We don't know, but there will be dedicated space has been one of the plans that's been talked about. So that's kind of in a nutshell. It's a lot of stuff wrapped in there. Daryl, I don't know if there's additional relevant items. I know I've asked Daryl to do a lot of research. Granville actually has an older building that was not being utilized that they allow Senior Neighbors to use. Their city does fund, I believe, the operations of that.
Yeah, that's a freestanding building dedicated only to seniors, so it's unlike ours where it's multi-use fire station. So we don't really track how much that costs because we pay for everything in that building, utilities, trash removal, cleaning, everything happens at Station 2 is just wrapped into our city budget for DPW or fire department. No, the only thing I wanted to add, Gary, I think you gave a good history of how things developed over there. And yeah, it was originally going to be a distribution center for senior meals, and then it kind of, over the years, has evolved into what it is now. And, they use a lot of space up there and a lot of our storage rooms, and we haven't had that many conflicts. They're pretty good about moving or not holding their events when we have elections or we have some trainings, but we did discontinue renting the community room out during the week because it limited our rentals to weekends only. So that was one thing because there's so much stuff up in there. Just a little bit more on the background, there were several other groups that used to meet at the old station too. We had a bridge club, we had an Iris Society, we had, I think there was a couple different clubs. We ended up moving all those folks when we built the new fire station over to the Ice and Fitness Center. And the reason we did that, because they could use the cafe area there, and the building was staffed. They could come, and maintenance was there, and they had restrooms, and we didn't have to have people go and clean up after them. So that's worked out pretty well. Some of those groups have stopped meeting over the years, but that was one option that we had. And I think, as Gary mentioned, the option to move to Station 3 is still out there. We offered that to them, and then it was kind of, they thought about it, and then we haven't heard back from them. So I think that option is still something worthy to consider. But we are having increased use of that upstairs meeting room more and more for our staffing needs and training. So, but like I said, most of the times we can use that, but there has been an occasional time there's been a conflict, and they have events planned also. So, just happy to answer any other questions, but I think you gave a very good recap of how it developed when we built the station.
Thanks. Okay. Commissioners, comments, questions?
I guess I'm a little bit unclear on what it is we're discussing.
It's more of our policy going forward, and lo and behold, Jenna had approached some of us. I'm not advocating for anything at this point, other than there's been some things coming out of senior neighbors I feel we need as a commission to develop a policy of what we want to do with that, because right now, that facility is being used, again, with no revenue source, no liability in place, extra liability to cover that group using that. And we've said we've got to look at other options, and those other options are not good enough for them. And actually, at this point, they've indicated they don't want to pick the stuff up until later this year. And there's been some, we've tried to have conversations, but they want that room.
And by they, are you talking about?
No, our senior neighbors,
Oh,
senior neighbors.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's what I
Yep.
thought you said that they were going to be making a pitch to us, and now
Well,
we're talking about, I'm just a little bit
so
confused
why don't-
what we're doing here.
Melissa, Jenna, if you'd come up. So the background, we know Jenna from her
Yeah.
American Legion role and so forth. Melissa had formerly worked for Cook Funeral Home, now works down the road for Heritage, down Lake Michigan, but you had some involvement at the Georgetown Township Center. So I want to be super clear on this. We've been dealing with this other thing for well over a year now. This happened to come up recently, but we're getting to the point to, once the Delta variant settles down and we're able to start, which we plan to start renting out the rooms again at the start of the year, we have, as a group, that's not a decision. I'm not comfortable. I don't have the authority to do it on my own. And I don't know the city managers necessarily. They're looking for guidance from us of what policy do we want to set. Because back in '09, it was just decided that we'll loan this to you until you find a permanent home. That's 11 years ago.
And that policy question is directly related to senior neighbors.
Or
just how we use the room.
I think how we use that room, probably.
So it's a policy related to how we use the room.
Correct, yes.
Senior neighbors being one of the organizations
Could be,
that would
absolutely.
use the room.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And I
And
resisted
then-
saying the name for the longest time because I don't want to, but that's who's using that room
Okay.
3 days a week.
And then their proposal is something separate, but also dealing with senior activities? Is that
Correct.
the connection?
Yes.
Got it. All right, thank you.
And I'm going to be quiet now. It's you.
Thank
Good.
you, Mayor Carey and commissioners, and for some of the commissioners that we've had a chance to meet with and talk with about proposing a senior center for our area. The ones that we haven't gotten to, we're sorry, it's just the timing and schedules haven't lined up yet, but we still do plan to reach out to you. I would like to introduce my cohort here, Melissa. She has been very instrumental in working with the Georgetown Senior Center, and together we've kind of come up with a vision of what something could look like for our community that we wanted to open the discussion and dialogue.
Thank you, and thank you for having both of us. I really have enjoyed meeting so many of you over time for lunch or just conversation. And just to give you a little bit about my background, my name is Melissa Mitchell, and I did work for Cook Funeral Home for 10 years, and I worked very closely with the Georgetown Senior Center. And recently I made a move to work for the Heritage Funeral Homes right down the street. And we serve so many of the Walker citizens. And when I came to Walker, or to Heritage, I reached out to the senior center and just kind of started learning more about what was going on with the seniors and some of the things that Mayor Carey has been talking about. And I really have had the fortunate opportunity to be a part of a senior center that is thriving with independent seniors, doing all kinds of programming, and had the firsthand opportunity to see what it does for the lives, the emotional well-being for the seniors, but also for the families of the seniors. And it is very different than what I believe Walker has experienced. And we've had some very candid conversations, and so I would like to be as open and candid as possible. Like Carol, you were saying, it helps us to get to a place quicker. And our vision, when we
started talking about it, I thought, wouldn't it be great if Walker could have something very similar to what Georgetown has? Now, I realize that Walker is not the same size of Georgetown, so it doesn't have to be exactly like it, but it could offer the same kind of program and energy and support to the Walker Senior Center or the Walker seniors. So my thought and my vision and what we had talked about would be that it would be managed and owned by the city of Walker. Over 30% of all of the citizens living here and constituents are in the age bracket of 55 and over. And we know that that age is going to continue to grow. Every year, 10,000 people turn 65 in the United States alone. And so even a portion of that will defer to Walker. And what can we do to help support that community? And so that's kind of where I started thinking, like, what could we have? And I agree, Mayor Carey, the situation that we have with senior neighbors, I have had the opportunity to visit many of the senior neighbor organization, Granville for one of them. It is very different than what you might see at some other organizations that are run and managed by the city or by the township. The example I use is Georgetown only because I worked there for 10 years and I worked alongside the senior center director as we went to these kinds of meetings with the township to help get that approved and put in place for the seniors at Georgetown. So I had some experience in doing that with her and then walking alongside of her. She was definitely the lead. I was just more of a support and sidekick. But I was thinking, just as you consider space and planning for the addition to the Walker Ice and Fitness, it is a great building. I myself have been able to attend a million hockey games, maybe not a million, but a lot of hockey games. I have 2 hockey players, or I did, and I loved being in that building. And I know that a lot of seniors go there to exercise, but there's so much more that we can offer seniors and that seniors do need. Exercise is definitely one of them, and that's kind of a nice thing that we already have that in place here in Walker. We have an opportunity for them to go and use that facility. But there's so much more programming out there that we could be offering them. And some ideas, and one of the things that Mayor Carey asked me to do, and I'm in the process of writing it up for you, is, what other kinds of programming would the city be able to offer our seniors here? And things like, theaters and music and programming for computers. We have a library, trips, social events, and food, financial services. All kinds of different programming. I'm not talking about financial services, come and we'll support you. I'm talking about, I need to do my taxes. We have somebody coming into the senior center to help them manage their taxes, that kind of thing. I need to know more about how to do work on my computer. Okay, let's offer this particular class. And most importantly, the emotional and the social aspect of our seniors. And we, sometimes I know as younger people and we're out in the community and we're working and we're going to work every single day. I mean, I worked through the entire COVID. Like, funeral homes don't take a break. And, I never really felt isolated except for the days that I was isolated myself due to COVID. And I can't even imagine what that feels like, especially for our seniors. And so that was one of the things that I wanted to come and just really ask you to consider as we are here in Walker thinking about what you're going to do in the future coming months and years in terms of the Walker Fitness Center. One other thing too is, when we talk about food, food doesn't always have to be for those who can't afford it. So Senior Neighbors oftentimes does focus on seniors who might not have the income capability of going to Meijer and stocking their fridge with fruits and vegetables. So they do serve many underprivileged seniors. But there are so many seniors that do have income, but they are not capable of preparing a meal for themselves. Or maybe they're living in their own home and they just don't even know how to manage it. They're recently widowed and now they're finding themselves all alone. And so they have money to pay for food, but they don't have a place to go and get it. And so the other suggestion and idea that I'd like to bring forth, if the city would so consider this, is Meals on Wheels is very instrumental, as you all know, in Grand Rapids. And they are very interested in working with the city of Walker in being possibly a place that would offer appropriate meals, nutritious meals, not only for the senior who can't afford it, but what about the senior who can pay for it? And so it doesn't always have to look like what you've always seen in the last 10 years. It could be so much different and so much more. And one of the things that we had talked about is possibly taking another tour of the Georgetown Senior Center so that you could get a better idea of kind of the vision of what Walker could do. And the Senior Center at Georgetown, just to kind of give you an idea, was built, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. And their operating budget is about $200,000. Now, there are some people that work there that deal specifically, there's one part-time person that deals specifically with transportation. Walker would not have to have that employment there because we have that transportation already in place. And they do have meals brought in, and they do have the industrial kitchen, like you said, that's a requirement across the board. However, the programming is also facilitated by vendors. So you get the right person in there, you employ the right senior center director. That person can go out and bring a lot into your community and to your seniors with corporate dollars. And so you don't have, the city doesn't have to be responsible for paying for all of this programming. The part that I would ask that you consider is providing a building and a space that's designated solely for seniors. And then when we think about, and I'm gonna give you my plug, okay? So I know you're thinking about building, this beautiful building and hopefully giving them a space, and that I am very appreciative for. But if for some reason a building would become available, i.e. the library, if they were to vacate, that would be absolutely ideal for our senior citizens. And here's my thought process on this. And if you work with other leaders in the senior service industry, they will tell you that seniors do thrive in a better capacity if they are in a space that is solely divided or set aside for them. And you can probably imagine it yourself, like if you were gonna go out and hang out with some people, if you were gonna go to the gym and you are 50 years old, most 50-year-old people are not gonna wanna go and hang out with a bunch of 20-year-olds, or 20-year-olds generally aren't gonna wanna hang out with 75-year-old people. And so we tend to feel more comfortable with people that are in our age bracket, at least somewhat in our age bracket, and you feel safer because you're more alike, and you will attract more seniors that way. And we have a lot of seniors that do go to the senior sneakers, but could you imagine what you could have if you had a senior center that was providing all kinds of programming in a very safe and inclusive place for each senior to go? In addition to all of that, I wanted to also have you consider, and Jenna and I are cohorts, we do work together at Heritage. However, she is the commander of the veteran for the American Legion. So what about if you were open to allowing the seniors to use that facility during the day, Monday through Friday? It could be a dual purpose building or space for our veterans. where they could come together, they could have their meetings, they could be together socially. If they need to do projects or, packing packages for other veterans, all the different programming that Jenna does for the veterans all over the city, not just in the city of Walker, we could be very instrumental in Walker to our veterans. So that's kind of my pitch. I don't know if anyone has any questions or any thoughts.
Yeah, I have one. I mean, this all, it sounds great, and I mean, you had me early on. I think what I'm struggling with, and others might be as well, is, the first question you asked, the foundational question really was, how did we pay for this thing, right? So I can listen to all these great ideas, and I can love them, but ultimately we have to pay the bill for them. So it sounds like you've got some strategies we might be able to explore to talk about how you build some corporate support to the thing. But do people pay memberships? Is it GT Connections? Is that what it's called, or is it something else?
It exactly is. It's called the GT Connections.
Yeah, so, first I think we have to have a vision for what that financial basis is, and then we can branch off in all these great ideas. And I'd love to go tour the place. And I hate to say but going back to the beginning, not paying for the fire station all the time, to me is a problem, for the current group we're talking about. Supporting seniors is not a problem. I'd love to do that if we can find creative and effective ways to do it. But I don't think we can just give away the fire station all the time, especially 3 days a week. That's a lot of time. So personally, I have concerns about that. But I love the idea of finding a facility that's synergistic with our veterans and our elderly. I've got a mom who I've moved 4 times in the last 4 years. I am intimately fascinated with how to keep the older generation happy and know that I'm going there one day myself. So all those things are important to me, but we got to find a basis where we think we can afford it sustainably.
Agreed. And that is one thing that we have talked about, Mayor Carr, we've talked about possibly how we could pay for it. And, however that comes about. And Jenna and I have offered also to seek fundraising in addition to hopefully maybe the city giving some support. It's definitely not something that we're going to decide on tonight. We're just asking you to maybe open up your hearts and your minds to think about and consider let's doing something for our seniors, because unfortunately they're not going to come here and stand before you. They're just not. And I've always had a passion. I have nothing really to gain from this except for I have a passion for seniors. And I now am very invested in this community because I serve seniors on a daily basis, and I drive up and down the street, and I eat at all the restaurants and shop at all the shops, and really from Heritage's point of view too, we want to give back to our community and see that maybe we have something for them. And I understand it's a cost, and where is it going to come from? But when we think about it, 30% of the people that live here are 55 and older. That is a huge chunk of people. That's a huge percentage of your community are 55 years and older. And you would be, if you haven't gone to a senior center, you would be amazed at how many people actually go to them. They might not do what you saw senior neighbors do, but they do engage in the programming, they do engage in the trips, they do engage in the social aspects of it. It's very, very different than I think, what I'm proposing is very different than what you've experienced in the last 10 years.
So I would agree with Commissioner Burke. It's a fantastic idea. I just would like to see some kind of outline for a business plan or something like that, so we can really sink our teeth into what kind of funding, how we can support. Are you going to try to do a nonprofit? You're coming to the city asking us for property in a building. Do you have matching funds or anything going? Those kinds of things need to start being. I don't want to speak for the group, but I'm going to. I think we would all support doing something. We've talked about that and building it into the new development of the ISA Fitness Center. So in my opinion, the next step is really I'd like to see an outline. You don't have to put the whole thing, just I'm very curious, and I'd love to tour this Georgetown facility and just learn more. just start at the beginning and find out what exactly, you're talking about and how it might fit into our future budget.
I've got some thoughts. First, the $200,000 figure you mentioned with Georgetown Township, that would be their annual cost?
Correct, their budget.
That's helpful. Thank you.
But I don't think that Walker would have that high of a budget in terms of, the payroll taxes, because they have some different things that they have there that you will not have.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you on that, and I just, for my frame of reference,
Mhm.
especially if it sounds like we're angling towards a field trip or a few field trips to the facility, maybe to avoid a quorum and having to publicly notice a meeting of the City of Walker Board at Georgetown Township.
Well said, thank you.
You don't want the whole community there?
That'd be great if you can get them out.
You know how
but-
to clear a room. Just
Yeah.
saying.
Well, I spend a lot of time out there already. So. But no, I think the points made already are important. I think that from my perspective, and as we are moving forward with whatever, I guess there is going to be investment in city facilities in the relatively near future. I think a part of that I will be advocating, and certainly I think most of my colleagues, that there will be some investment in seniors as a part of that. What shape that takes, I think, is certainly something we're going to flesh out as we determine what these facilities are going to look like. But I think we do need to have more discussion about what an ongoing cost looks like as a part of that. It's one thing to put up the space, to whether that's building it as a part of an attached facility or dedicating an independent building for this. That's one thing. That's something that we can do. We can do it as a part of something we're doing. It's a major one-time investment, but when we create ongoing costs and we're not creating offsetting revenues, suddenly what trade-offs are we making in our budget annually? We run a pretty tight ship around here. The way that we spend our money is largely on the maintenance of the things that we have. So if you're creating new costs, what are we maintaining differently as a part of offering those services?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that I'm totally turned off to the idea. I think there should be potentially a role for offering services for seniors as a part of the program we have. I think through Walker Ice and Fitness makes a lot of sense to me, but I think it's certainly open for discussion as a part of what type of shape that would take. I think that we need to make sure that we're being conscientious of, if we create new costs and we're not adding revenue to the pie, that slice is getting taken from somewhere else. So definitely something we'll be having active discussions on moving forward, I think, but those are just my initial thoughts here.
And I really can't add too terribly much more to the conversation, but, I definitely understand the why, why we need this, and I definitely understand the need because of the percentage of aging residents within Walker. But again, it's the how. How do we cover that? How do we get the revenue? I know there's, we can fundraise, we can do so much. And I do agree that we need to probably come up with some kind of a business plan, some kind of a strategy. Again, I'm more than willing to go to the Georgetown Center too. I'd love to tour that to kind of get like an idea. I really struggle with having to have an independent building, its own building. I mean, I understand exactly the points that you guys are making in regarding having the seniors have their own building, but I know the library, I think that we've always kind of thought that would be a place for the growth of the police department and the fire department to use. And then when we come up with this community building, I think we could possibly maybe consider doing like a wing, a senior wing.
That would be great.
I mean, I'm not saying that, right now the possibilities are endless with what we're going to do with the community center, with Walker Ice and Fitness. And it sounds like there's going to be some kind of a salary that would be having to be incurred for a potential, I don't want to say director, but where did I have it written? I don't have a couple pages, but you know what I'm saying, someone who runs or staffs that particular program, and maybe that's something that can be split within people on staff at Walker Ice and Fitness. I don't know. I don't know what that job title would incur, but I think it's something that we all here have talked about. prior saying, yeah, we need to kind of try to include seniors, especially when we're talking about the community building. So we're all on board. It's just not knowing, we get the why, we get the need, we just are like, how do we do the how? And, then COVID hits and you're like, okay, we really are very financially savvy and we do a really good job watching what we spend and spending responsibly for our residents of Walker. So it's just knowing how to do it and how to be able to fund it, not just right away, but ongoing. How do we do this? So I think we need to, take baby steps and walk into it. I think it's doable. It's just knowing the how. But I applaud you guys for coming here and putting it out there and giving us some creative thinking.
Thank you.
And I would zoom out even just for consideration, just maybe put another thought there. The county does collect a millage for seniors and veterans separately. And that could be, this could have a public-private partnership to it, that there's a number of ways to do it. But I had asked, I'll maybe finalize here with, I had asked Jen, I said, what before I had my time in the barrel with the two over there, and I had asked, I said, what's driving Melissa to do this? She's very passionate about it. And I said, I'm going to ask that at lunch, and I asked you at lunch, and you responded appropriately with that. And I have since asked Jenna since then. I said, really? I said, am I missing something? What is driving it? And I want to applaud you. I think there is a very genuine want to serve and care for the seniors in our community. It shows, and it helps us as obviously as we're, you can see that there's a very impassioned group up here to want to support that. And I will support Commissioner Glanville, hit it on the nose. I mean, I think she does speak for all of us and that we do want to support this. How do we do this is the
Right.
million-dollar question right now. And I'd also shared with all of you just the moving parts with the talk of the new community center. And I'd also shared with the group, I said there's also the Fruit Ridge Bridge that probably at some point is going to come to us. There may be some bonding we have to look at with that, and we have bonding capacities too, and how much money that we're going to go down. And this is a group that's fiscally conservative, so there's all these. It's a very complex time right now, but there are discussions that need to take place right now, knowing that this need is coming. So no, thank you for both of you. Maybe a takeaway, if you could, maybe in groups of 3 or less is fine. If you want to grab a group, and I'll leave it up to your discretion, however the commissioners want to orchestrate that from a scheduling perspective. So just to avoid the quorum piece. Madam Clerk, you're welcome to join us, city managers as well. So that being said, I'll leave that ball in your court. And we can continue to have conversations around that. And then, we'd all talk often enough. I'm not too worried about that.
Thank you so
Thank you
much
so
for
much
your
for your time.
time and all that you do. And just in case any of you have a senior that would like to attend, we are hosting an art prize tour. So at Heritage. So I booked a motor coach, I hired a commentator, and we're taking 42 seniors to the art prize. But you gotta hurry because the bus is already half full. But we're trying to do some things that, some things that we can do on our own to support some of the seniors. And it's been an overwhelming, we haven't even put our invitations or flyers out and it's already half full. It shows us really the desire for seniors to be able to do some of these kinds of things. So, and that's typically what a senior center would do. So anyway, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you both.
Thank you.
Appreciate you staying.
Thanks for taking us away.
All right, we have definitely earned our time tonight. A couple of very quick last-minute things. Just an update on special events. We are still, at this point, planning on moving forward with Pumpkin Bash. I've shared Daryl and Frank, the conversations with the health department are on a multi-time a week basis of a touch point of where are we at as a community and what are we seeing, and I think just we're gonna stay the course right now where we are at, and, so that's that. So Pumpkin Bash right now is the next one coming up. There are some veteran stuff coming, Veterans Day events and so forth in November as well. But for now, everything is on track. There's also, this one's been a little touch and go. There's a ribbon cutting, and I will send out after tonight on Wednesday at DTE up on 3 Mile, their new location. The one caveat is they are requiring everybody to be masked up. It's going to be a different type of, and I want to respect that piece of it, but it's a pretty big thing for them and the jobs that have come up there. So it'll be at 1 o'clock. It's going to be a very quick, probably 30-minute thing. I'll make sure to send everybody details, if not yet tonight in the morning, on it. But there was kind of touch and go, is this going to happen or not? And in the timeline, but we are on, and it is at Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Lastly is our Mayor Pro Tem will lead the meeting on September 13th, which is our next regularly scheduled one. I will be absent from that one. I know you will not go to 9:04 at that point in time. Okay.
I won't let it.
Thank you. All right, good enough. Anything else for the good and order from the group?
Where do we stand with the senior neighbors, and do we want to pursue?
Maybe suggestion, really good question. We had talked, and if it's good with the group, is to go back and ask about the viability of the 3 Mile Station 3 again. I mean, just really, when you look at the room, I believe Station 2 that community room has more square footage than that's available for seating, because when you take into account the commission dais up here and everything else, that is the largest inventory room we have in the city. And, 3 days a week, it's not.
With a caveat of having a contract and.
Correct, exactly, yeah, there's some revenue, there's also proof of liability insurance and things like that, so, because what happens if there's a fire in the, heaven forbid those, I know the crew's downstairs, but, so, all right, we can end on that one. We all good? I'll take a motion to adjourn and a quick support and a